I've been unemployed since 2019, although I am starting to make some money on YouTube, so maybe I'm not technically unemployed anymore. But either way, I've worked minimum wage jobs. I've worked as an engineer, which was a relatively high paying job. And most recently, I have been unemployed, living at home with my mom. Through all these different employment situations, I've learned a lot about human nature because when I worked minimum wage, I was working in fast food, so I had a lot of customer interaction. And let me tell you, when you're working at a low status job like that, a lot of people treat you like you're not even human. Customers would talk to me like I'm a freaking self serve kiosk. They just walk up and start spouting off their order. No, hey, how you doing today? Or anything like that. Just, let me get a number 5, large with a Coke. And, it was just very dehumanizing. You could tell most people thought I was beneath them, or they just didn't even consider that it was an actual sentient human being on the other side of the counter. But the way people react now when they find out I'm unemployed, especially when they find out how long I've been unemployed for, it's just a whole nother level. I recently got a message on Facebook from a guy I knew back in college. We worked together on a group project back in the day. We weren't actually friends or anything, but he always seemed like a nice guy. But he messaged me out of the blue the other day, and it was just another reminder of how conditional people are. The amount of respect people show you, in my experience anyways, it's heavily based on how they perceive your social status to rank relative to their own social status. But before I get into exactly what happened when my old classmate messaged me, I want to talk a bit about how my own family treats me now that I've been unemployed for so long. Because things have definitely changed since the time when I actually had a job. One thing that is particularly depressing, that's the only way I can describe it, it's just depressing. The way my own parents treat me now compared to when I was an engineer, you would think I did something to disgrace the family name or something. I do understand that I am being a burden on them in a lot of ways. Since I've been unemployed, I am pretty much dependent on them financially, but also, I never asked to be born. And I also don't think they adequately prepared me for adulthood. But regardless of that, I just remember how proud of me they used to be. My mom used to always brag to everyone she knew about how her son's a successful engineer in a big city, yada yada. But now I'm pretty sure she just tries to avoid the topic because she's ashamed of me. I've heard her before talking about me on the phone. I guess whoever she was talking to asked about me, but she was like, oh, same old, he's doing fine. Then, I couldn't hear what the other person was saying, but the next thing I heard my mom say was, well, no, he actually moved back home. And then after that, she was like, what? Oh, yeah, he's still working as an engineer. Yep. So, she lied. I guess she was too embarrassed by the truth, so she decided to lie about me. And there's also the way she treats me directly. Back when I was an engineer, whenever I would come home to visit, because I was working in another state, but whenever I'd come back home, my mom would always tell me how proud of me she is, and she would just be really nice to me, which throughout most of my life, she wasn't always so nice to me. Growing up, she was always very narcissistic, I would say. She would always demand I do things for her that it didn't even make sense for her to not just do it herself. For example, I remember when we were living in this house where her computer was in a room that was on the other side of the wall from my bedroom. I remember she started knocking on the wall and she was yelling out, calling for me. So I got up, left my room, and I went to see what she wanted. And she was just like, she was holding up her cup and she was like, here, pour me some more Mountain Dew. So I just looked at her like, you can't be serious. Because the room she was in was pretty much right next to the kitchen, but my room was literally the opposite corner of the house. No exaggeration, it was the farthest possible place you could be from the kitchen. But that's just how she viewed the mother-son relationship, I guess. She expected me to serve her like a frickin' house servant. And she tried that same exact thing again several times after that, where she would just start banging on the wall, demanding I get her some more Mountain Dew or some sweet tea, when she was so much closer to the kitchen than I was. I never did it, by the way. I just refused every time, and then I just did my best to ignore her as she continued to pitch a fit. But that's just an example of how my mom treated me growing up. But after I moved away and I started working as an engineer, she just completely changed. She stopped asking me for favors. She was just more pleasant to be around in general. The difference was clearly after I got a higher status job, she actually started to respect me. That's what the difference was. But all that went out the window as soon as I became unemployed. Even at first. So for those that don't know, I quit my engineering job to go back to school and get a master's degree in computer science because I wanted to switch to programming for my career instead of what I was doing. So theoretically, I still had potential to get back into a high-paying career at that point. But when I quit my job, I moved back in with my dad. My parents are divorced, by the way, but I moved back in with my dad, and I was paying my own way for a while. I had some money saved up, so I wasn't leeching off my parents. Not at first, anyways. Especially my mom, because, like I said, I didn't even live with her. I was staying with my dad. But as soon as I quit my job, my mom immediately started treating me like she used to back when I was a teenager. She would constantly be calling me, asking me for random favors, come mow my lawn. I need a ride to the airport. I need you to clean the gutters. And look, she's my mom. I don't mind mowing the grass for her or whatever, but certain things, like she wanted me to rearrange her living room. Then she wanted me to move this huge hardwood desk from her bedroom to this other room. Then after I finished, she wanted me to move it all back where it was, because I guess she didn't like how it looked. Then a couple days later, she calls me up trying to get me to move the desk again. And I was just like, no, I already moved it twice, And she got so fucking mad. She was screaming at me, and then she actually called my dad and started screaming at him, demanding that he tells me to do it. He took my side on that one, by the way. I'm pretty sure he just hung up on her. But yeah, that's just how my mom is. But she didn't treat me like that when I had that fancy engineering job. She actually treated me like you would expect a loving mother to treat her son. But my dad, on the other hand, he was always pretty reasonable when I was growing up, and nothing really changed about how he treated me before and after I got that engineering job. He did tell me he was proud of me and everything, but he basically just always treated me the same. But after I quit and I moved back in with him, well, at first he was still the same, but once he realized I was struggling to find a new job, just slowly over time, he got more and more fed up with me. It's like he's just extremely frustrated with me all the time. I mean, I don't know. He's usually pretty chill, but he just can't understand why I don't just get a job. He still views the world like it's the same as it was in the 80s when he was a young man. He can't comprehend how I could possibly be struggling to find employment when I have a master's degree. And I can tell he's ashamed of me, and he's frustrated with me. He's frustrated with the fact that he's had to support me over the past few years, although I have been living with my mom now for almost 2 years, so he's pretty much off the hook now financially. But he's still, he'll make these little jokes at my expense. Like we'll just be chilling, watching football or something, and he'll just randomly say something about how I need to get a job, as if they're just handing them out with the free samples at Costco. And it sucks. I don't want to be a disappointment to my parents, but I obviously am. And I gotta say, it hurts the way that my dad treats me sometimes. All these little comments he makes, it hurts because he was never like that until just recently, these past few years. And, I maybe there's some things I could have done differently over the past few years in order to actually get a job. There is some potential timeline where I could have had a job right now, but, it's not like I didn't try. I've tried, and I just can't find a job. Like, nobody would give me a chance. And then, yeah, eventually I gave up. But it's not just family. Literally, any time I meet someone new, they always ask that dreadful question, so what do you do? I mean, I've actually started to tell people I'm a freelance video editor because I do technically work now and make a little bit of money with this YouTube channel. But obviously, I don't want to tell people directly about this channel. But over the past several years, whenever I meet someone new, or maybe I see someone I haven't talked to in a while, they always ask me, what do you do? And when I would tell people I'm unemployed, even just saying that without them knowing the full context of just how long I've been unemployed for, for all they know, I've only been unemployed for 2 weeks. But as soon as I would tell someone I'm unemployed, I could just immediately see their expression change. And most of the time, it wasn't pity or sympathy I was seeing. It was more like an expression of, oh shit, I gotta get out of this conversation. I didn't know I was talking to a fucking loser. And the biggest thing was people would just look really uncomfortable, especially anytime someone would realize how long I've been unemployed for. It's like, you'd think they just realized I'm a convicted murderer that escaped from prison or something. People just get super uncomfortable. And usually they don't even say anything. 90% of the time, in my experience, when someone finds out I am chronically unemployed, they immediately end the conversation. I've even had times where the other person didn't even say anything. They literally just walked away after I told them I've been unemployed for a few years. People act like my unemployment is a contagious disease. It's 2026 right now, but everybody's still practicing social distancing when I'm around because I'm unemployed. It's like, there's no telling what he'll do. This man is unemployed. He must be mentally ill. He's a danger to society. That's what it feels like anyways. That's what it feels like people are thinking. So imagine trying to date as a man that's unemployed. No woman wants to be with a guy that, forget about providing for her, I can't even provide for myself. I mean, for most guys, that's how it is. I'm sure if I was extremely good looking, then women wouldn't care as much about my employment status. But I'm average at best. Probably below average, honestly. So it's pretty unlikely for a guy like me to attract women when my bank account is just as ugly as my face. And I'm getting old too. I'm 37. I know I'm not elderly or anything. Like, theoretically, there should still be enough time left for me to start a new career and actually make a meaningful impact or whatever. But people don't seem to see it that way. Everybody expects you to have your shit together by the time you're in your 30s at the latest. So it is what it is, I'm kind of numb to it at this point. I never had any success with the ladies anyways, even when I was younger. Actually, I guess I technically had my first girlfriend only somewhat recently, although I wasn't really unemployed at that time. That was during my very brief stint working at a car wash for $11 an hour plus tips, which is basically the same as being unemployed. But that wasn't a real relationship. She made sure I knew from the start that there would be no sexual relations between us whatsoever. Looking back, it's pretty obvious now that she was just trying to get a green card or trying to find a way to stay in the country anyways. I don't know how all that immigration stuff works. But yeah, that wasn't much of a relationship. And even with her, she was constantly telling me to get a better job. You got to get a real job. Use your degree. Get a job. But whatever. I made plenty of videos about that whole situation as it was all happening. Now, the thing that happened recently that was the inspiration for me making this video, I got a message on Facebook from a guy I hadn't heard from since college. We had a few classes together and we were in the same group for a project one semester. Well, he messaged me and at first he was just like, "Hey man, long time no see, how have you been?" And right off the bat, I already knew he wanted something because it's not like we were ever friends. This guy barely talked to me after the semester we worked on that project together. I think he might have said, "What's up?" in class 1 or 2 times, but that was it. But still, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Even if he was just reaching out to try to recruit me for a pyramid scheme or something like that, even that would be fine with me. At least somebody thought about me. But yeah, I messaged him back and I said, "Can't complain. How are you doing?" So basically, he tells me he just got laid off and he was wondering where I'm working at these days and if maybe I could help him get hired. So I told him that I'm actually unemployed too. So then he was like, "Aw, bummer, dude. It seems like everybody's getting laid off these past couple months." So I said, "Well, actually, I've been unemployed for a while now. Ha ha." Immediately, I regretted typing "ha ha" at the end of the message. That's a very feminine and gay thing to do, but whatever. We already know I'm a loser. So he was like, "Oh, sorry to hear that. What happened? Is everything okay?" And, it seemed like the conversation was going pretty well. He was being friendly. He expressed concern about my situation, which is nice. But then I replied, pretty much telling him the whole story, how I quit my job to get a master's degree, and then I just haven't been able to find a job since then. So I've been unemployed for 7 or 8 years now, however long it's been. So then he just replied, "Bro, WTF." And that was almost a week ago, and that's the last message he sent. "Bro, WTF." I did respond to that, by the way. I just said, "What?" But I'm pretty sure he's just not going to say anything else. I guess once he found out how long I've been unemployed for, he probably thinks I'm some kind of unhinged lunatic or something. So why even be cordial at that point? I guess. I mean, it's funny because he's also unemployed, just like me. So I don't know. Maybe he'll have better luck than I have. But it seems kind of like the pot calling the kettle black for him to act like that towards me just because I've been unemployed for so long. I mean, in a way, I kind of do get it. I'm not really much better than the average homeless person, and we all know how homeless people get treated, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But it's still crazy to see someone that is also unemployed being a dick to me like that because I'm unemployed. He's unemployed too. Like, how are you gonna insult me when you are also unemployed? He might be in for a rude awakening because it is true that a lot of people are getting laid off lately. The economy is not doing well. I'm pretty sure this guy was working in the automotive industry, so I don't know how that industry is doing right now. I know cars are expensive as shit these days, so maybe that means the industry's doing all right. I don't really know. But I don't think I would ever end a conversation with an acquaintance by just saying, "Bro, WTF," then ghosting. Like, it's so easy to just say something like, "Damn, bro, good luck out there." Something that's kind or even neutral. I couldn't even imagine saying something that's unnecessarily mean like that. "Bro, WTF." I don't know. I couldn't even imagine doing that. But hey, maybe that's just me. But I am used to it by now. I already know that's how it is when you're a man. Your value in most people's eyes is determined by two things: how good looking you are and how much money you make. I'm not doing well in either of those categories, so that means people treat me like garbage. Or really, most people don't treat me like anything. I'm just invisible to most people. But when people have to interact with me, because, say, I don't know, let's say I have to ask a worker at the grocery store where they keep the toothbrushes because I need a new toothbrush. In situations like that, people tend to not be very kind to me. They treat me the same way I imagine most people would treat a beggar on the streets that smells like human waste. Maybe not quite that bad, but it's not good. It's not good. And that's without even knowing my employment status. Once people know I'm unemployed, then it's like people aren't even rude to me. They're just scared. They're scared of me. Like, people seriously think that the only way you could end up unemployed for more than like a few months, it could only be because you're mentally unhinged or something. But in my case, I don't know what it is exactly. Obviously, the job market is horrible for software development right now, especially at the entry level. So I guess that's the main thing. I also, unfortunately, do not belong to any demographic that would give me bonus points in the hiring process. I'm just a regular white guy, so not exactly the profile these tech companies are looking to hire these days. Although I do think the job market is bad enough right now that it wouldn't matter what race I was. I think if I was female, I could probably get a job pretty easily. Or not necessarily easily, but I think I would be able to get something. But yeah, I'm unemployed, and that means I'm a loser. I guess. It seems to be. That seems to be how other people see it, anyways. If anything I said here resonates with you, then please consider watching some of my other videos. There's also some secret videos you can watch for free on my Patreon, videos that YouTube does not want you to see. So check that out. No sign up required. You can just watch the videos. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.